Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to Kindred Spirits here on the RFK Refugees Podcast Network. Ted here, John here. After a crazy week for the men's soccer team, we're back to the business of covering the Washington Spirit, and boy, do we hope things will get better for the Washington Spirit, because they be rough. They be rough. Before we get into that, John, how was your early part of the week? I've already asked you your weekend. I'm assuming most people listen to this show, so
they probably do.
The early part of the week is going well.
Yeah, it's not going bad. I had to go into the office today. That was weird, but I think here's my question for you, Ted. Who is the Wayne Rooney for the Washington Spirit to come save this season? Is Mia Hamm as like a guest additional coach? I don't know what the move is. They gotta have something.
Well, no. Here's what it is, John. It is the 7 returning players.
There you go.
From national team duty.
The cool thing they decided to do is restart the season when they come back too. They're going to take all the points off the board and start again.
Yep. That's what they should do, honestly, after this season. But no sour grapes. But funny you're returning to the office. I just found out I will be traveling to Charleston, South Carolina for an major implementation for my business. So I have to be in front of the people that I'm mostly virtual. So that's going to be an adjustment.
Are you going to go to a battery game? Are they playing that weekend?
They are not. Well, I'm going Sunday and staying through Wednesday, and they are not. They are not playing. I highly doubt, considering how intense this whole thing is going to be, I'm going to even have time to catch a battery game. Will not be. I plan to attend the Charlotte game. Due to this, that is now off the table, unfortunately, which was looking like a really good call after Friday, and now it's looking like darn. I would have missed an opportunity to see Wayne Rooney on the sides. But I am going. Hopefully, he'll get his. I'm going up for DC the 23rd. So anyway, sidebar there. We got to talk Spirit.
Ted's like, oh, we got to talk Spirit because honestly, honestly, it's tough, man. It's tough as a fan. If you go to Kindred Spirits DC, you'll see a visual representation of what it feels like to be a Spirit fan right now. That's just kind of how it be.
And I really try, and I probably not successfully try to keep the conversation focused on the Spirit for the show, not to. This is a Spirit show. We did this for a reason to, bring attention to the Spirit. So I'm mainly trying to transition really quickly from that, because I realized I'm going down the DC United path, and we've already talked about that. We talked enough about them.
We did. And as a reminder, if you're listening to this and you're a Spirit fan, tell your friends who are Spirit fans. This is the only Washington Spirit podcast in the game. There's nothing else. This is it. So if we're good or we're bad, if we could be better, we can. But we're the only game in town, so tell your friends. Anyway, let's talk. Let's talk another game at Segra, another drop point situation.
It's literally like the hits just keep on coming. And I guess the most dispiriting part about all of this was the Spirit did not play poorly. They did not play like a team that was, that was essentially outclassed or outplayed. I thought they had the better of play in the first half over the Kansas City Current.
Chris Ward agrees with you.
Yeah. They were passing, moving. They were finding opportunities. Like, you could see the ideas there, and it was certainly, I think getting Terry McKeown back in, and Halferty back in, who was with the US U23s, and you also had. I'm trying to think. I think there was a couple. There's one other player. I'm blanking on.
I'll give you the lineup information so we can go from there. The changes from the last game. Halferty was she had made a substitute appearance in San Diego, but she started. Amber Brooks came in for Karina Rodriguez. Taylor Aylmer starts after coming in as a sub. Jordan Baggett with her first. Jordan Baggett with her first start and first appearance or since her injury. Actually, she appeared in the San Diego game because she scored in the San Diego game. And Mickey Owen started after coming in at halftime and getting an assist against San Diego. Additionally, in this game, first minutes for Avery Collins and Gabby Vincent. Avery Collins, who I remarked to the other person who was in the press box, wow, she's tall, and she's 5'11". So I'm gonna get a picture where I'm standing next to Avery Collins. That's my plan, since we are same size. But Gabby Vincent getting her first minutes since a season-long muscle injury that's kept her out of the lineup. So sorry, I just want to square that before you got into your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jordan Baggett, she was the name I was forgetting out of the players who she appeared off the bench, but I think getting her the start was certainly a reward for her goal scoring. And I really thought that they all played. You could tell that there was, particularly offensively, there was another level, but you could just tell that extra level you get with the three normal starters up top. Your Ashley Hatch, your Ashley Sanchez, your Trinity Rodman, like those types of players just bring an extra sharpness up top and an ability to it really just felt like from a finishing perspective, this team just could not really find the back of the net. They had opportunities, a lot of block shots in this game. I remember a couple one pretty like nice passing opportunities, but it's like the ideas were there, everything was there. It just like they just could not get to find the ball into the back of the net. You were live there in Segra Field, so I definitely want to get your thoughts. First of all, has Segra Field gotten any better since you were last there?
Has it gotten any better? No.
I'm curious.
I guess not. I would say as an improvement for the media. The media love to complain. Now I'm a full-fledged part of that. They have put overhead tarps over the press box quote in quotes. So that's good. I'm appreciative of that, particularly since it was so hot. There are still problems with food. They're using food trucks to service everyone in some tents. The lines were long the entire time. That is unfortunate. I would say it was about 60% full on a warm day. So that's good on a Sunday. That's pretty good, particularly for a team that's in last place against the Current. So it's not, the box office was not going to be a big draw there. But yeah, as far as the play in the field, the first 35 minutes for the Spirit were good. Chris Ward called it the best half or section of a game in the season since they played Gotham the first time. So that is a positive. The lineup changes, obviously they're plumbing the depths of their depth now. You mentioned the big change between having the U.S. national team players there, having that front three to finish chances to be better off the ball and movement around the box. The drop off is significant between those, and that happens. Mm-hmm. And I was, talking to Jason Anderson about this, and we were talking about the fact that they need to do something. And he was like, I don't know what kind of money they have because they have 7 national team players on their roster, and they have given raises to quite a few of these players. Trinity is the highest paid player in the league, so there are limitations into what they can do, and that's what you're seeing. Sort of not necessarily a top heavy roster because it's not just a couple players; it's almost a full lineup that's being pulled out. So that's a struggle, right? There are players that are being brought in that were tasked and thought maybe to play occasionally. There was so much conversation about how deep that midfield was going to be and how they were going to struggle to find minutes for everybody. And that's not been the problem, certainly. But the midfield was interesting in this game. I thought that there were players that distinguished themselves, and there's players that did not. I would say.
I mean, you talk about some of the injuries. Tara Mickione's been injured. Jordan Baggett's been injured. I think Dorleen Bailey and Bailey Feist have been out for at least certain aspects of this sort of run without the stars as well. So it was like this team was plunging further into its depth, and now you're kind of getting like this is very clearly like a second 11 in a lot of ways.
For sure,
certainly not a first 11, but it was certainly in my mind it looked like it was a bit of a step up from what we saw. Against San Diego, which was like there was like just nothing, like no attacking threat. Like San Diego was never under threat much in that game. In this game, it was very clear that the Spirit were in control. It's just that sort of like next step up, that drop off is still pretty significant. So if you've got a Terry Mickeyone coming off the bench, against tired players, that can be very effective. She can probably pick up a couple goals, but if she's starting and having to, break down and then she gets tired and gets sub off, then you're dipping into that, next layer of sort of depth in the Spirit. So it's sort of like, this team has its A squad. Its A squad is basically out with the U.S. national team. The B's squad has basically been injured. Like they basically where their depth got hurt was sort of in the middle part of that lineup. And then, they had their C squad and then their, basically their fill-in squad. I won't even give a grade to because they basically signed a bunch of players and brought them in. And now that B squad is coming back. So it looks better on the field. And, honestly, another day they might have been able to get a result. I remember, I think there was one play before it was 0-0. And I think the goal really, in a lot of ways, just kind of took the wind out of the sails. It was just kind of like the here we go again type of mentality. Because I saw I was kind of looking at their XG stat. I was watching, I need to highlight this game and getting towards the end recording. And I saw their XG just go way up. And of course, then it was a penalty that ended up being why their XG went up. But
yep.
One point, I believe there's the person that does, and I should really credit her because she's one of the few people that does it.
Yeah, there are very few NWSL stats opportunities, so I'm thankful for these.
Yeah, and it was a 1.45 expected goals for the Spirit, so that includes the penalty. They basically kind of hovered pretty close, I think, to the to the current through most of the game, and then really kind of took it over sort of later in the game. Also, they were chasing the game a bit too.
Yeah,
so
French tipped probably four balls over the crossbar that would have been in the net. She's why Kansas City won. It's not obviously the goal was important, but it could have been 2-3-1 were a different goalie in there. So that's to your point about A, B, and C squads. The Spirit had 3 to 4 players in this lineup that would make your starting 11. Right, Sam Staub's going to play. Julia Rotter is the Swiss Army knife for this team and probably plays most times, even with the first choice 11. Anna Halferty has been on the fringe, and Dorian Bailey's been in contention when healthy. Dorian Bailey was, to me, the best player out there for the Spirit, and it's always good. It's good when FootMob will back up your eyesight. So that was that. There I said Dorian Bailey. The game in the first 35 minutes, it was noticeable that the Spirit were being forced or were choosing to run the ball up the middle. It wasn't the normal sort of run up the channels on the sides and cross the ball because that just isn't the strength of the players that are in there now.
Yeah,
but
it was a very possession style game. It was very much, Kansas City were trying to hit the Spirit on the counter, and the Spirit were trying to control the game. Some really excellent switches. I think they had. I thought the midfield as a whole played probably the best I've seen them play this season. And just controlling the game, making quick passes. They were finding opportunities and finding space. Again, just couldn't find the finishing. The finishing just wasn't there.
And I want to also
some good saves from French. So
I want to call out Taylor Almer too as the other part of that midfield. I would say of all the players, so clearly the depth has been more than tested and been required to start many games. She's a player that had opportunities towards the end of the year last year and earned another contract for this year. Of the players that have been forced into this role, she has done the most with it. Mm-hmm. No one else really has. I would argue there have been no players on the periphery who have been given all these starts that have really seized opportunity later down the line. But Almer has been fantastic, so I'm happy to see that. Bailey Feist is, and Jason and I talked about this too, it's a struggle to come back from a knee injury. And it just feels like she's not up to the speed. Like she's just a little bit slow compared to where she was before the injury. That's not uncommon. And the challenge for her is she has not had a first choice 11 to work with. She has on occasion. I think we are inclined because of the fact that the Spirit have been missing 7 players now for, I think, 2 weeks to forget that they've had those players the full rest of the season and they're still in last place. The reason they are is because their schedule is horrible and super condensed and everyone's tired. However, they have had a first choice 11 at times and they haven't been able to get anything done. So that's to keep that in mind for when they all come back after just playing a major tournament.
Yeah, well, true. I mean, I guess you're correct there. I mean, they had moments where even in this condensed schedule, they had 3 points sitting at least in 2 games. And let it slip towards the end, maybe more. I remember the 2 big ones, obviously. I think this team is definitely. I think they're snake bit. I think it comes on the goal, which is just a weird. It was I think it was a throw in that came in or a cross, and it kind of deflects off the Spirit defenders and then just kind of lands right to the feet of the Kansas City goal scorer, whose name
CC Kaiser.
I cannot remember. Yeah, CC Kaiser, and I think I don't know who the defender was marking her, but tries their best to kind of like hold her off, and then she just kind of and Devin Kerr, I thought maybe could have done a little better, sort of coming out meeting the ball. I think she kind of missed a little bit on her slide, and it's just kind of an unfortunate ball that trickles into the back of the net. Just kind of an odd goal, and I think it's sort of like, I mean, you make your own luck, obviously, but I mean, it's just kind of a weird snake bit type of moment, and I feel like that's been the Spirits' 2022 season. It's just been odd moments. They've been pushed to the brink, and now they've just cannot buy their own luck in getting something out of some of these games.
That goal was really against the flow of the game, and the players there. So the throw in occurs, a cross comes in. Amber Brooks runs into Gabby Vincent, who just subbed on. They knock into each other. The ball falls to a current player who puts the ball to CC Kaiser. Cam Bagalski sort of tries to seal her off as though someone was about to help her out and pick the ball up, but no one did because that was not the play there. And as you said, Devin Kerr didn't do anything. So it was really what do you call it? Example in miniature of the season. Like there players who just came on, players who have not played with each other, making uncharacteristic individual mistakes and not having anyone bail them out, and then conceding. The Spirit did not deserve to lose this game. I think on XG that's apparent. On watching, it's apparent. 0-0 draw would have been fair. I think the Spirit probably should. If anyone was going to win, it should have been the Spirit. We'll talk, and then so the Spirit have a good spell in the first 35 minutes. In the last 10 minutes of the game of the first half, they are horrible. They are being run off the field. The Current have changed formations 2 or 3 times in the first half. The Spirit had no idea what was going on. Players were just trying to get to the end of the half. Unfortunately, Julia Rotter gets injured, and there's no place of depth really on this roster at this point. But Julia Rotter is not a player you want to lose. I would say maybe only Sam Staub is a player who was out there that you could less afford to lose as things go on. She had ice in her knee, unclear what that's going to be, but that just means that depth gets thinner at left back. Cam Bagalski is now your starting left back for at least the next 2 games probably. But it got exciting again. The Spirit, after the goals conceded, have had more possession, putting French under more pressure. Tanaya Alexander earns a penalty, and it kind of came not necessarily out of nowhere, but something was coming. There was a corner previously. Before that, there was a corner taken that French flailed at, and the ball bounced twice inside the 6 and should have been scored. Nothing happened. So you thought, all right, you don't have your horses out here, but somebody should be able to nod this ball, and this should end differently. So Tanaya earns a pretty soft penalty, I would say. I don't know if you've watched that part. It was pretty weak, but that's fine.
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit weak. So it was like a little bit of a play here. So French comes off her line to get the referee to come and push her back. Current players are infringing to get the referee to come over and push them back. Meanwhile, Tanaya is on the spot. Her shoulders are heaving up and down. Like she is feeling it. She is not tired from running anymore because it's now been about 3 minutes since she was fouled. So she is under the pressure, or at least physically appears to be, right? That is the body language was not good. And not a great penalty saved. French saves the day. And I asked Chris Ward after the game, I said, she wasn't probably the designated penalty taker, right? But also, did you even have a designated penalty taker when this many players have been either injured or subbed off? And he's like, no, Tanaya grabbed the ball because she wanted it. She won it. She wanted the ball, and I want players who want that. And the result is the result, but that mentality is important. And I kind of called out Tara McKeown as being a player who did not have that instinct to take the shot, not necessarily to grab the penalty, but a number of times on the top of the 18, she'd look to be playing somebody else in instead of saying, how can I create space and get a shot on goal? So that is, young team. Tara McKeown, you got to remember, is very young out of college still. This is her first full season. She came in midway last year. So there's a lot of that, right? I think the weird part is, since they won the championship, and we've said this as an excuse a number of times. The team was not intending to win last year. It's a young team they were trying to build to a championship. So like they're like it's all in reverse. They won first, and now they're learning all these hard learned lessons that you would probably have assumed they would have learned last year. So it's strange, right?
Yeah, I mean, I look at the penalty and I'm like, I look at who I was like, well, who was out there? I think Terry McKeown had been subbed off at that point.
Correct.
But then I look at Bailey Feist was out there. She's a player I would imagine should grab that penalty and take it. Not that I'm saying like Taylor Almer wanted to take it, great. Or sorry,
she was off.
Tyann Alexander wanted to take it, like great. She wants to grab it. That's great. But I feel like that's a lot of pressure to put on a rookie.
Yep.
To go out and want to take that penalty, and I feel like somebody should have like someone should have, and I'm going to put a little bit of that on Chris Ward. I feel like there should be, with all these injuries, and I understand he hasn't had a lot of opportunities, but I would think you would have in your head as a coach like, okay, with this lineup, just quick before the game, Feist is the penalty taker. Terry McKeown's a penalty. If Terry McKeown's not there, then Feist is. Like, those are very clear things that you should set, in my opinion, as a coach. Who's going to be the one to take the penalty, and not, everybody wants to take the penalty, and and I'm sure Tyann Alexander wanted to take that penalty, and that's certainly one way to do it. Who wants it, and no one else stepped up. It was all like
no one else came for her. There was no one trying to grab the ball out of her hands. It was very much, you got it, girl.
Yeah, and just, if she scores it, we're not even talking about
Correct.
it. We're talking, wow, what a great moment. But it's saved. And then you have to ask. You do have to ask. You have to say, where were some of these other more experienced players to step up and say, no. Like, Tyann, you'll get your goal. Like, I guarantee you it'll happen. We need this goal. I can do this. I can take this.
And she was one of the only players that had a penalty save in the Challenge Cup, too. It's not that matters.
Yep.
Like, N of 1, so you have a little bit of data there. Sam Staub took a penalty, like I think 9th in that. It's tough, man. I agree. I would think Bailey Feist would be the player you'd want in there. Clearly, maybe not. I agree, though. I think that's a conversation that needs to be had before the game. I think there are just so many. If you were to ask Chris, he would probably say, look, man, we're just trying to get 11 players through the game. And we have our tactics to go against the opponent. I'm trying to think if they've had a penalty in regular season play to take. I think they have.
I think it's been Hatch.
Andy or Hatch are the two that you'd take. So anyway, that here nor there, that would have potentially given this team a draw, but it didn't happen. And once again, they are now firmly rooted at the bottom of the table with games in hand on the clubs that are above them. So Spirit essentially have to win out.
Yeah.
For once people come back, which is possible, but I also think unlikely.
Again, I reiterate that we are tied for the most games played amongst any other NWSL team somehow, despite of all of this, and I refuse to understand the logic behind that. It's crazy.
Oh, we're not last place anymore. I'm sorry. Courage are now in last place with 8 points. I apologize.
Yeah, but they have 9 games. They have 3 games in hand on us,
which is crazy.
So they could inevitably, again, crazy. NWSL schedulers, screw you. Honestly, this is like early levels of MLS bad, and we've talked enough about it.
Neutrals are talking about this now, not just Spirit fans. Neutrals are saying like, if the best team in the league previously the next year falls apart this precipitously because of scheduling, then you screwed up. It's not the team's fault.
Yeah.
Let's get into some listener questions. This one ties into the last one. Doug Reyes, fan of the match probably, fan of the match last week, says, odds we still make the postseason in your estimation once we get the national teamers back after the CONCACAF championship. As we just said, the Spirit have played the most games along with San Diego in the league. They sit at 9 points. They have a negative 4 goal differential, and they have 6 draws, 5 losses, and 1 win. They're a little bit past halfway in the season. What do you think the odds that we still make the postseason?
1 in 3.
33%. All right, so that is high.
1 in 3. So 30%. 30% is what I'm going with.
Yeah, 33%, right?
33%. Sorry, I thought you said 3%. I was like, it's like what? No, it's 30%. 30%.
I would say 1 in 10. I'd say 10%
Really?
chance. Yeah, I think that you're gonna have to have a almost unprecedented run. You're gonna have to have a run like you did last year, foregoing your draws for victories. And I've not looked at who they're playing. By the way, if they lose against Orlando, I put it now on Sunday. I now put it at 1%. That is a team that is right above them in the table, and if they can get 3 points while being the hollowed out carcass of a side that they are now after they've traded away almost all of their players, that is a very, very bad sign for their ability. Understanding that they've got to get all those players back, but as I just said, those players, Andy Sullivan has played most of every match. Kelly O'Hara and Emily Sonnet are switching on and off. Ashley Sanchez has been playing. Trinity Rodman has been much less playing. And Aubrey Kingsbury just chilling. We could have used her. She's just hanging out, just watching. But anyway, yeah, I would say about 10%, and if we lose on Sunday, 1%.
The only thing I will add, the intensity. Well, I guess the Mexico game was pretty intense, but the intensity of the games that they've played in this group stage. By the way, man, dude, we'll talk about like U.S. I mean, CONCACAF needs to fix this for the women. I can talk about this in the women's championship. And I understand. Like, I'm not saying like Mexico deserved other chances, but oh boy, like what just absolutely crushing to watch them fall apart the way they did after they were considered probably one of the favorites to make the tournament. And they're a country that has started like to invest heavily in women's soccer. So I mean, my biggest fear is that I'm hopeful this will galvanize them to keep investing, and will not say, to some of these, male owners, oh, see, we tried, it didn't work. Why are we doing this? But really, really tough. But I think women's soccer needs an actual qualification stage, not this like weird tournament that takes place, honestly. But either way, that's beside the point. But to back to the question, I'm saying 30% just because I know how good this team can be. I know. My hope is they can kind of come together. They're going to have a little bit of a break. My hopeful they can pick up points. If they pick up a win against the Spirit, I think that could go potentially a long way. Against the Pride, I should say. Against the Pride. That could go potentially a long way. Maybe pick up a draw against Carolina, and then you've got maybe some time to regroup, come back, and then you've got your players back. You can kind of phase them in. I think you're right now, like looking at this midfield, I think they could get by without an Andy Sullivan. I think they could get by without the defensive players they have. Names are just
Kelly O'Hara and Emily Sonnet. I disagree. Yeah, I think they need them very badly.
I like defensively. Like I don't think they were poor in this game. Like if I'm being honest,
the current are not a offensive juggernaut, so they should be able to handle. They should be able to handle them defensively.
Correct. I just think right now this team desperately just needs some offensive prowess. Like they need some offensive
for sure.
Ability. Like that's a game they win. And I look at, some of the games coming up, and I think that's what they need. So, and those players have not played, I guess, as much as some of your other more defensive and more midfield minded players. So in my mind, like I feel like they can get this together. It's going to be tough. I mean, 1-3, I'm being very generous here with my thought, but I think if this team can get on a run, I think they just need to get that one win. They get that one win, and I think then you're going to start to see things start to come together. Like you're going to see that snap, and then they're going to snap back to what we saw.
I want to increase my odds to 25% because I'm looking now. They are 6 points out of the last spot in the playoffs with a team that's only played one less game than them, and in between there, the grouping is so tight, right? It is possible. They really just do have to just like flip a switch though and be 2021 Spirit. And just like, take no prisoners, have no injuries. Actually, speaking that takes me to my next question. At Bill Beverly on Twitter says, "How is number 33 doing?" Ashley Hatch, an essential part to the Spirit. I think I don't want to say most essential, but if you look at sort of where the Spirit are unable to complete things with the lineups that they've got, it's really the hole at the top of the lineup. It's a forward spot. She was sent home from the tournament from the U.S. national team due to a left leg muscle injury. and they said she would have missed the remaining parts of the tournament. I don't know how much longer the tournament is. I think it's another week. So no idea about severity. I imagine there will be some press availability before Sunday to talk about the game on Sunday, this upcoming Sunday. So I'll get an opportunity to ask about the health of both Julia and Ashley. But that is a player this team really needs to have back with the rest of the national team players. It's very, very important.
Yeah, there's kind of not a lot of depth, or not a lot of players that can do what she can do out there on the field for sure.
Nope. Next question. At AnINDC says, is there any information on how long after this season Spirit are stuck with Segra? I did some Googling from an article that talked about their partnership with DC United. Keep in mind, this was pre-Michelle Kang. Things could have changed. There could be unspoken or unpublished agreements. But the text says, additionally, the Spirit will play 7 NWSL regular season home matches played at Audi Field and 5 at Segra in 2021. In 2022 and beyond, the clubs will collaborate to amplify the number of matches played at Audi Field each year, with all postseason matches to be played at Audi Field. I have not heard a wishy-washier saying than amplify the number of matches. That is the most meaning nothing word I have ever heard of in my life. So what I think that means is, based on attendance, based on conflicts, based on everything else, the Spirit will continue to be at Segra Field in some capacity going forward, unless the games that they have at Audi Field for the rest of this year are to the caliber that they were in 2020, or was that 2019 when they were selling the games out.
And I think what you need to look at, I think if you're the Spirit, I think you're looking at having 7 players potentially, probably most likely being on that World Cup roster in 2023. I think if you are the Spirit, you're kind of targeting that as your potential moment, maybe to now again, this will take place in Australia and New Zealand, so game time matches are not going to be as easy to come by. It's going to be a bit of a mess. Your usual 2-3 a.m. type of games. But that's a moment where, if you have Trinity Rodman tear it up, that could galvanize it to sort of move this team maybe a little bit more into the market, and then eventually play more games at Audi Field. I think we've definitely hit a lull, I think, in interest. And I think the lull in interest is because it's not been, a World Cup year or the Olympic year. The players are, while they're known, everybody kind of knows Trinity Rodman. You talk about when they had that game at Audi Field, that came from the fact that Rose Lavelle won the bronze ball. And she was an exceptional player in that World Cup. She came back and played in Audi Field, and there was a lot of buzz and a lot of interest. So I think that's the type of buzz where maybe we see that start to transition. I hope there is some like stern calls. I know Michelle Kang was looking to get Levian involved in ownership, so maybe that could shift the narrative a bit. If Levian has a vested stake, maybe he wants this team, more on a pedestal other than off in Segra Field. Also, I mean, honestly, a lot of this could be solved if Segra Field was just a better facility. Mm-hmm. It's honestly, it is embarrassing that it is still in the state that it's in. I know this is like a phased approach, but honestly, Jason and Kaplan, can you please make Segra Field a better facility?
Just get rid of the turf too.
Yeah.
By the way,
mm-hmm.
I mean the turf was an answer to, we need to get this stadium assembled quickly for Loudoun's inaugural season. Damn the torpedoes! Don't worry about a sprinkler system. Just get it up so we can start playing. Just rip it up, man. You're gonna have Loudoun United playing here forever. You're gonna have academy teams playing here. You're gonna have a women's team theoretically coming here as well. So yep. And just the heat off the turf, the potential for additional injuries. It's just I don't understand it, but I don't think that's coming. I think we're stuck with this, unfortunately. Last question from the mailbag at Edward Cern says, evaluation of Chris Ward. Could he be in danger in the offseason? I was originally going to kind of snark at this. He was not the only one in the mentions who was sort of talking about Chris Ward, about, should we be expecting better? is he in danger in the offseason? I would say no manager could withstand this amount of scheduling, chicanery, and losing your best player, losing almost all of your first choice 11 due to international duty. Nobody. No other team has this many players being removed. No one else has played this many games except for San Diego. So I think that it is extremely challenging to evaluate him on this season. I think you have to take this season with a grain of salt and look at last season and look at the performance he did then. And I think even if you put him sort of on average between those two extremes, I think he has at least earned another season that doesn't have this level of extenuating circumstances. There have been games where they have been in winning positions that they have lost. There have been issues with defensive organization, but he also hasn't had time necessarily to have training with these players.
Yep.
So it's so challenging to really blame him for any of this. And even the players are in situations that they didn't expect to be in. They are now in. Some of them are showing that they're not ready to be in that position, but alas, they are. So I would say he's not in danger, Ted. What do you think?
I don't think he's in danger. I think regardless of what happens this season, I think he'll be, through next season. The only thing I could say that could make his seat a little hotter is once we get to a point where we have the starters back, we have everybody at our disposal. We're entering, a relatively peaceful period of weekly games and training sessions, and then things still don't get better. They're still, losing games, dropping games. I think that could make his seat a little hot heading into next season, where it's all right. That was, we'll write that one off, but we need to see something next season. And then if this keeps going, then I think then you got to start thinking about, maybe moving on at that point, as crazy as it seems. Because, you're right. I mean, it's the schedule's been bad. The timing, it feels like everything's just bad, like the absolute worst timing. It's like we play a bunch of games with the starters, no training sessions. The team is sloppy. They've dropped games, games they had up the upper hand and should pick up points. They drop, it's just been like a series of bad events. And then finally we got a break. Oh, but all the players are gone. And then it's like playing through this game with essentially the weakest lineup of the teams that have had players gone. And then it's like, all right, now, and then we're hitting back that third stride. Hopefully that is smoother. And, I think if he can find a way to steer this team into the playoffs, then I think he absolutely keeps his job. Even if they finish, even if they just clinch that last playoff spot, I think it's very clear that he should be still around. I still think it's doable. I think this team, I'm hopeful this Orlando game. I know a lot of the players won't be there, but I think if they can find a way, they'll be at Audi Field. They'll have at least a fuller complement of players that they can choose from. They're against a team that is barren. If they can pick up 3 points in this game, I think that could be sort of a thing that might at least get that sort of that proverbial monkey off their back and keep them moving forward. But I don't think Chris Road is at any risk. I reserve my right to really evaluate at the end of the season, but I think he's fine. Players like him, he hasn't lost the locker room as far as we know.
Yep, I think that's true. The two little bit of news: Jaden Shaw continues to be held hostage by San Diego. Chris Ward has sort of shared his annoyance with that situation, thinking that there would be some play ball situations there. They would sort of, the Olivia Moultrie is the analog here, where OL Reign claimed her out of Portland and got a 3rd round draft pick. So, and that's a player that everyone was talking about, obviously very young. I think Jaden Shaw has a bit more of a pedigree now. Was playing in the under-19s, I believe. So I think they're asking for more, but it's a question of what gets given. She would be playing in the starting lineup right now, I'm pretty sure, based on how they've been talking about her. So that has not resolved itself. Hopefully it will soon. And then finally, Audi Field is now able to host women's national team games. They've an agreement with U.S. Soccer happened today. So look for games this season, this year, this calendar year at Audi Field. So great for national team fans that are local. They get a chance to see, and also great for the 7/11ths of the Washington Spirit who get to do it in front of a home crowd. That's pretty neat.
Yeah. All right, folks. I think that's going to do it for this episode of Kindred Spirits. I hope sunnier days are around the corner with this team. This team was a lot of fun to watch. So hopefully we'll have a fun game to watch after they beat Orlando, and we'll have some good things to say about the team. In the meantime, guys, please check out the show again. Tell your friends about the show. Right now, we're fairly confident. Right now, we are the only podcast covering the Washington Spirit.
We're like a secret. We're like the CBGB of Washington Spirit podcasts. It's a very cool club that very few people belong to. So if you like the show and are already listening to the show, please leave a review and on iTunes or wherever you listen to us, and tell your friends about us. That's the only way we're going to keep growing this part of the show. We know that it's the toughest time to grow a Spirit podcast at the way the season has gone, but I think it's word of mouth that's going to get us there. So we love you, and we hope that you'll help us out.
Yep, absolutely. All right, thank you guys. We'll catch you guys next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.